Hey, what is happening, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a brand new episode of Definitive Discussion Rebooted, where I bring on phenomenal individuals from all over the place on the internet, YouTube, all over, the different corners of gaming, and we bring them on the show to talk about games and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. A nice deep dive for you guys. If you haven't already, I highly suggest that you guys join up on my Patreon, check out the new exclusive content I got on there, including my EX mode, which I usually post up after I post up a new Definitive Discussion episode. There's a lot of content on there, even for the dollar level or higher. You guys are getting a ridiculous amount of content. But besides that, again, we'll get into more plugs later on. But today, I got a returning guest, to my show, Stealth from from Twitter, over there talking constantly Nintendo stuff all the time. I had him on the show a while back, but today we're talking about a bunch of Nintendo RPG stuff on Switch, JRPGs, Western RPGs. Stealth, what's good? I haven't talked to you in a minute.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a very long time. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, though? Because you told me you're on vacay, you're relaxing, and this is kind of like spur of the minute, for everybody listening to this now. We were like, you know what, you want to do a conversation? He was like, yeah, I'm on vacay. How's that going for you?
I'm in the point of vacation where it still feels weird not to be in the office and not working, but I'll get there.
You're doing vacation wrong. You should have already been there by now. Either you need more drinks, more snacks, or more random stuff on your vacation to do, so that way you don't even have to worry about the office. But either way, thanks for chilling with us for a bit on your vacay, because we're going to talk a little Nintendo Switch stuff, because obviously you're big into Nintendo Switch. For anybody that doesn't know, again, I know we've said this in the past when you were on last time, you talk about a lot of Nintendo stuff on social media for a number of different reasons, correct?
I talk about Nintendo, I talk about RPGs, I talk about general industry happenings, and really I just talk about whatever I feel like talking about in the moment. Yeah. But yeah, my main focus are Nintendo and JRPGs.
Yeah, and again, over the last couple of months that I've, since we follow each other on social media like Twitter and such, you're constantly talking about a lot of Nintendo Switch things, as of late. Today, the reason why we kind of came together for this episode is because we want to talk about RPGs, JRPGs, Western RPGs, specifically on Nintendo Switch, because one of the things that you did that I saw on Twitter is that you shared a list of a bunch of different Nintendo Switch exclusives or Nintendo Switch role-playing games that are third-party or non-third-party ports and stuff, and it's a pretty meaty list, really meaty, which is pretty cool. What prompted you to share that, and what prompted you to think about that stuff?
Well, I get maybe 1 or 2 DMs a day and multiple tags on Twitter a day asking me about RPG recommendations, which RPGs someone should pick. And, I just decided why not just do a general list and give people a guide where they can go to and, just kind of research on their own.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot here. There's a lot to love. We're going to go through a little bit of the list. We're going to talk about some of the stuff. Let's start off with just JRPGs, because me and you are both JRPG fans. We play a lot of Square Enix games. We play a lot of other Japanese developer games, both indie and third party, big AAA titles and such. There's a lot in here. Some, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have not played, even on other platforms, whether, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, etc. Let's start off with the top of the list. Again, Nintendo Switch exclusives that you want, or if you want Nintendo Switch exclusives, you got 4 games listed on here. You got Xenoblade 2, you got Pokemon Sword and Shield, Fire Emblem Three Houses, Octopath Traveler. Personally for me, solid list at the very start, but why those games for you specifically?
Well, as I should mention, as many people have mentioned, and this is the reason why it's always good to have an editor, Octopath Traveler isn't actually a Switch exclusive anymore. It's on PC, which I forgot about, but it doesn't really matter.
We don't think it was started off as a Switch exclusive, yeah.
But these are probably my 4 favorite exclusives on Switch right now. I've talked about Xenoblade 2, God, for 2 years now about why it's my favorite RPG on Switch. Just everything about it just kind of clicks for me. And then, Fire Emblem Three Houses is pretty recent, but it's a kind of a humongous game. If you want to see everything and, kind of get the full grasp on the story. And, I love that. And I know Pokemon Sword and Shield has been a little divisive among some fans, but,
True.
It's been my favorite Pokemon game since the DS era. I just love the way it looks. I love the music. I love the new Pokemon. I love the battle system. It's just very, very good for me anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Fire Emblem specifically, with Three Houses, that series I've seen grow like exponentially over again a good number of years. Since Awakening, think is kind of like I guess you could say the resurgence or the renaissance for Fire Emblem. With Fire Emblem Awakening on 3DS or yeah, 3DS, and it was just so good for me. And now seeing it now make a big splash. And granted, I know a lot of people complain about all the characters in Smash Brothers, like there's just way too many Fire Emblem characters like that. But seeing so much love for that series in general. And it's such a Japanese game. I know it's weird to say that, but it's just, again, it gets so much support now here in the West that it's really cool. But also about Octopath Traveler, again, I know a lot of people really love that series, or really love that game, I should say, and me included and stuff. But do you feel like that's the one for a while was like the definitive JRPG to own for the platform? Because I think there's a good argument for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one that a lot of people think about because it was at the Switch reveal event, pretty much, and I think that's the reason. The thing with Octopath Traveler is it's not hard to beat the game, but it is very hard to kind of get like the big story payoff. You kind of get the individual stories if you play the individual paths, but and I've talked about this too. There's a post-game dungeon that's extremely hard.
Oh yeah.
And that and that's where you'll get like the really crazy story reveals, but most people don't see that because they don't get to it.
Yeah, I think that also it gets a little bit closer to the line of just being cheap. Like, because I love like post-game content. I love secondary content, especially in JRPGs, because it could get pretty wild and crazy, especially when you're playing like 30, 40, 50 plus hours in that game, and like there's all this other crazy stuff to do. But there are sometimes, including in Octopath Traveler, where I feel like the game gets a little bit cheap, with its difficulty or some of the things you have to deal with. And again, that's a very subjective thing for some people, but I still think it's a fantastic game if this is your genre. If that's a must own for me on the console or on the platform. And it was.
Yeah, I love it.
Time.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I love the game.
Now, let's talk about some other stuff again, going through this list. Again, if you guys want to see this, he actually has this picture image of this list over on his Twitter, which is twitter.com/stealth, right? Or twitter.com/stealth40K, if I got it right.
It's at Stealth40K.
At Stealth40K, yeah. So, again, feel free, if you're listening to this now, to look at that list now. Pretty sure you can find it in his history or something. But now we're going over to, if you only own a Switch. Now, you got a lot of Western RPGs in this part of the list. And I think that if you only own a Switch, a lot of this, all the different sections could apply to get like all these games and in some form or fashion. But like you got some big heavy hitters on here. Again, you got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which, again, fantastic game. I would say, for me personally, even though I know people say go to PC to play it, the definitive version for me on consoles would be on PlayStation 4. Because that's where I played Witcher 3 Complete Edition. I love that game. I did a review on it not too long ago. But you also have Divinity Original Sin 2 and also Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. Why all three of those games? And again, besides the obvious, for Witcher 3.
I think I put it in its own category because for Western RPGs, I think most people would prefer to play on PC or PS4. So, I didn't really want to offend anybody by saying, the Switch versions of those games are the best. Because clearly, they don't look as good, they don't run as well. They have the same content, but, I think Witcher 3, and I've only played a little bit of it. I haven't finished Witcher 3 or Divinity 2. I'm kind of playing through them at my own pace, but, they're very, very good games, good story, good characters, good voice acting. I really just like it.
Now, I think that a good argument for all three of those games, and again, many of these games that we're going to touch on eventually on this list, is that the portability of them, because these are big games. Like The Witcher 3 is huge. Like, I think there's a strong argument that that game is larger than Breath of the Wild. I think that if someone somewhere has to look at the maps for these games and just be able to to tell if that's the case and stuff, but even if it's not, like that, those are huge games. Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, huge game. Like, again, just the amount of places you could go and the things that you have to do in them and whatnot. But why Skyrim, though, guys? I know that's a game that's been pretty much ported to multiple platforms, been re-released a number of times. I think there's even a VR version of it that I got to check out one time at E3. Like, it's pretty wild with that. Why Elder Scrolls specifically?
Well, Skyrim does have exclusive content on Switch. It's not a lot of exclusive content, but it is there. And, it is just a fun game to be able to play on the go.
Yeah, true. And again, someone who hasn't played it like that, because again, I've only played Skyrim both on PC and PS4, and again, the VR version that they have like lurking around. Like, I don't even remember a lot of people even talking about like the exclusive content on Switch. Like, again, it just seems like, oh, like this game is out on another platform. Like, you've already played Skyrim like 5-10 times now at this point. That was like the general conversation about it. So it was just curious to me, like, why have it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another fun kind of game to be able to play on the go. I think that's where the big draw was, to be able to play that game anywhere because it's so big.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the appeal for a lot of these games. And again, most games that are just making the jump over to Switch, like that's a huge part of it on top of everything else that gets included. So moving on from there, let's talk about these enhanced ports, because I think you could include all those games there if you only own a Switch, and again, some of these others that we'll touch on in various different spots. But like this one's a little bit more meaty that you got. You got a lot more on here, actually. You got games like Dragon Quest X, Definitive Edition. You got Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remastered, Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age, 3 Disgaea games. Was it a lot of Altair games? Because again, there's like 4 or 5 that you have on here.
There's like 10 on the Switch.
There's a lot. Like I always get like press releases of them, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this series, like, there's got to be an audience for this thing, like, because there's so many. Valkyria Chronicles, which is a good pick. I think that's a really cool one. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Was it Diablo 3, Chocobo Mystery Dungeon, Romancing Saga, Snack World. That's a random one I've never seen. And then World of Final Fantasy Maxima, which I think is also a good pick. But again, there's a lot of different ones. Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition, which that's one I find very interesting, because I figured a game like that, the way that's designed, for anybody that's never played the original Baldur's Gate, those started off on PC, and it follows a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons, like, setup and gameplay mechanics and stuff for that, RPG. I mean, that one is something that I feel like more people want to play on PC, because I played it on the Switch, and again, it was a little bit awkward for me, but again, that's a very different type of game being put onto the platform. But tell me a little bit about your thoughts with this list here, because again, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot, and obviously the first one, and it's probably my favorite game on Switch, is Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition. Just an enormous game, quality. I can't say enough good things about that game. In keeping with Square Enix, Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remaster, Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age, really great games. World of Final Fantasy Maxima. But the games that I do think get overlooked slightly are Disgaea 1, 4, and 5 complete, which to me are some of the best strategy RPGs ever made.
Yeah.
Bang for your buck, just really, really good. And I don't think they get talked about enough, so I'm glad I was able to do that here. But yeah, there's just a lot of enhanced ports on Switch in general.
Now, again, this is mostly just Western RPGs and JRPGs, but there's even more with other genres. Like, again, the list and the amount of games on Switch is like kind of ridiculous at this point, which is a great thing.
And there's a lot of games I didn't include at all.
Yeah, there's a lot, but again, these are mostly just your picks out of these. Now, Diablo 3, like, I know a lot of people really love Diablo, myself included. Diablo 3 is a fantastic game on other platforms and stuff. With the Switch version, again, you've gotten to play it, correct? Like, you've messed around with it for a while?
I have, yeah.
Okay, like for you, again, that's another game I feel like a lot of people would rather play on PC or other platforms for one reason or another. Why the Switch version, besides it being content complete?
Well, it's kind of because there were other people on Switch who wanted to play it. And, it was easy enough to find, a group of people to play, and that's really all there is to it.
Good point. Yeah, and something that's kind of funny with that, because a lot of these older games that end up making the jump to like other platforms, not just Switch, sometimes like you'll end up finding a lot more people to play with them rather than like some of the best platforms there usually people play them on. For example, like some of these games, playing them on PC, you probably won't find people playing them anymore because everybody's moved on to like other things. But like when these re-releases happens, you get more people just jumping online and doing stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool. Which we hopefully can see some more of stuff. Anything out of this list specifically, or this part of the list, that you feel like is maybe one that you were a little bit kind of iffy on? Because again, there's a lot on here. Some of these games I haven't played, like the Altair games, I haven't played all of them, because again, there's a lot, like we mentioned before. And even the Romancing Saga games, which I think are re-releases because of an anniversary, correct? Or am I wrong there?
Yeah, I believe they did have anniversaries, but I think they were delayed so much that it didn't really make sense to call them like anniversary games so much. But yeah, I mean, I did think that those are very good kind of SNES classics to me that they kind of put new content into, and I like them.
Good point. Now, speaking of that, as a little add-on point to this, I'm pretty sure like eventually this list will change as more games go out. We got the Trials of Mana or Secret of Mana, the Mana collection and stuff. I feel like is one also worth mentioning and stuff. For people that have played them or have opinions about them and such. But I feel like that's maybe going to be another one that you would probably throw on there as well. Yeah,
I missed a lot, like The World Ends With You HD remix. I missed a bunch. I missed a bunch of games.
I don't know if I would include that personally for me, like The World Ends With You. I feel like with that one, you got to play on a DS with the stylus. You know, again, that's just as someone that's played a lot of that game, and it just feels more comfortable playing it on there. But I've heard like mixed things here and there about that one specifically on Switch. Again, as someone that's really
the controls aren't the greatest, but it has the most content. It's still fun. You know, I like it.
And that music.
You know, it's not like it wouldn't be my it wouldn't be my top 10 Switch RPGs, but you know, it's still a good game to buy for sure.
I agree. And that music though. That music is dope.
Oh yeah, that music is amazing.
Oh man, like I love the music of that game. That's something that if it ever gets a sequel, I hope the music is still at that level of quality because it's so good. But anyway, there's another part of this, which I think is the last part of this. Is okay if you're looking for other fun RPGs on Switch that you mentioned, you got a bunch of different things that some of which I've reviewed in the past. I mean, look at here, you got a lot of the Tokyo RPG Factory games, I Am Setsuna, Lost Sphear, Oninaki, which I think also can made a strong argument to play also on PlayStation 4 as well. Cosmic Star Heroine is another cool one, especially I'm pretty sure me and you both love Phantasy Star, but for anybody out there that loves Phantasy Star or classic Phantasy Star, that's definitely one for you. Like that, Tales of Vesperia that you have in there, Definitive Edition, Ni no Kuni 2. Oh, well, you put Ni no Kuni 1, but Ni no Kuni 2 I think would also be another one that also you could probably throw on there as well. Valkyria Chronicles 4 and stuff. But again, we're just going through the list. But tell me a little bit about this part of it. I mean, again, you also have the South Park games on here. A lot of great games. A lot of good RPGs.
Yeah, the South Park game, the South Park games I really like, and I don't talk about them enough because they are like turn-based RPGs. Hilarious. They look like the show. They're so good.
Yeah, they're really.
Yeah, they're so good.
They're like stupid funny. Like, and again, you are right. Like, I think the gameplay of those are very underrated, especially the first game. I think the second game was it tried to be a little bit more funny, wasn't as good, but I think the first game really kind of nailed everything on its first shot, which I thought was really cool. And again, because it's portable, it's good to play on Switch like that, but you could also play it on other platforms as well. There's a couple others on here that I want to ask you about as well, specifically Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition, because again, that started off originally as just an Xbox 360 exclusive, if I'm remember correctly.
Yep.
Stuff.
It did. There were actually a lot of Xbox exclusive RPGs at the time.
Yeah, there's a couple ones that I want to ask you about it in a second, but specifically for Tales of Vesperia, why specifically on Switch besides it being portable? Because I know that, again, when I played it for review, I played multiple versions of it, but for me, the best pick was PlayStation 4, because mostly the visuals and stuff, but I think all the versions have the same type of content, right?
Yeah, I mean, all the versions have the same content, and I'm not really saying, the Switch version is better than the PS4 version. I'm just saying if you have the Switch and you want to play RPGs on Switch, it's a good one to get.
I agree. Now, also Ni no Kuni. Now, I think me and you both have a love for Ni no Kuni and Ni no Kuni 2 because, again, that art style, that Ghibli-looking type of visual style, I think is really cool. And on Switch, for a lot of people, I think it's great. I mean, did you spend a lot of time playing Ni no Kuni?
I did. Not... I'm still in the middle of the Switch version. It's my replay. I played it first on PS3, obviously. But yeah, I just love the way it looks. I love the Pokemon-ish battle system. Love the music. I'm less of a fan of Ni no Kuni 2, but I still wish that will come to Switch this year. I'm hoping maybe. Yeah, but yeah, I just love that game. And it was actually kind of a big shocking announcement during E3 last year that it was coming to Switch. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. Again, it's just kind of random. But again, those games are good. They just look good. Those are feel-good JRPGs. I feel like granted, there's a lot of stuff that happens in them, whatnot, but there's just certain RPGs that no matter how much I play them or how much I see different criticisms about them, those are just feel-good games to play. It just makes me feel good just to sit down and just dive into Ni no Kuni because it's got that whimsical nature to it. I'm like, oh, this is so cool, happy and stuff, or magical or whatever. Now, the other thing I also want to ask you about is that on this list, looking back at it now, there isn't a lot of indie games on here. The one indie game I think that stands out to me is Cosmic Star Heroine. And again, like I mentioned before, plays very similar to classic Phantasy Star and a little bit of Chrono Trigger too, I would say. It's very, very good. Why is that for you? And at least in your opinion from where you were making this list.
It just kind of reminds me of the SNES classics. I really liked it. And it was just the one that popped into my head. Obviously, there's a ton of indie RPGs on Switch, more than I could ever count. People reminded me that I missed Golf Story, which is funny because that's literally one of my favorite games on Switch. But for some reason I don't think about it like an RPG because there's not really there is a level up system, but it's not really prominent. So I didn't really think about it. But yeah, everyone was like, oh, that's one of your favorite RPGs, and you didn't even mention it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to mention. Again, there's so many games, like making a definitive list is kind of tough. For any sort of topic like this, it's there's just so many games. There's so many more that are still coming to the platform or have jumped onto the platform that hardly anybody talks about, that we're bound to forget something at one point. Now, one thing that I do want to ask you though is, what is one game that you do want to make the jump to Switch? That's specifically Western RPG or JRPG that could be good on the platform. Now, since we mentioned Xbox exclusive role-playing games beforehand, I think one that would be awesome to make a resurgence in some form, I doubt it's even possible, Lost Odyssey, honestly.
That's a good game.
That is a fantastic game, and I think that'd be really dope. But what is one pick for you though?
Well, I think everyone probably expects me to say something like Persona 5. Everyone wants that on Switch, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Let me think. I'll try and think of something that's a little bit more realistic. And you know what? There's actually a lot of 3DS RPGs that I want on Switch.
Me too.
And I'll talk about an RPG that I mentioned the other day is Radiant Historia.
Good pick.
Pretty much all, like even Etrian Odyssey Nexus, which I would love for the Etrian series to make its way to Switch, but there's just a lot of 3DS and DS RPGs that I would love to see on Switch.
Me too. Yeah, I think that there's a lot, especially now with Fire Emblem being so popular. I would love to see Awakening and then Fates. All the versions of Fates get some sort of like bundle together and put on Switch. Like, there's a lot of games, even on 3DS and Wii U, that I feel like should get that treatment. Like, I would love, granted it's not a JRPG or an RPG, like the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask HD, to get put into bundles like that were on 3DS, brought to Switch, because I feel like some of those games like that, and again, if we're sticking just to JRPGs here, it's stuff like Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Fates, didn't really use like a lot of the touchscreen a lot, where you had to like do a bunch of stuff other than maybe the map and maybe a few cutscenes on the bottom like that they could probably work well on Nintendo Switch, just having it play kind of very similar to Fire Emblem Three Houses in some way. Is there maybe like another game like that you could think of that's like, okay, like why this hasn't come yet, or maybe it's coming down the line?
Really sure. I mean, I'd like to see. I mean, there's just so many games that I'd love to play on Switch because it's portable, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
But yeah, it's tough. It's actually a tough question, but yeah, there's just a bunch of them.
Yeah, but I think even with now, like, we just got so many things to play right now. I mean, we're over here complaining about like, we want this game, or we might like this game, or we have all these other recommendations. But look how many games we got on this platform at this point. And there was one point, remember, like around the launch time, like there was not really much that people were complaining about. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, like a wave, we got all these games.
It's true. It really just it became overwhelming for me.
Now, if there's one thing that you're mindful of with JRPGs or RPGs on Switch right now, what is one thing that you hope to see that, some of these games, or maybe Nintendo as a company, kind of avoid with the genre? Whether it's like good or bad things. Like, again, one thing I could say, as an example, is that I don't think that every single role-playing game that maybe might be popular on another platform should make the jump, because obviously whether it's quality control or things that are just like, not really relevant right now these days. Like, I'm pretty sure like there's a couple games I'm just like glancing over that were probably big on like a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 that are just like, kind of irrelevant now at this point. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some games. There are just some games that can't be ported, and there's some games that can be ported, and they just don't even know that they can. But yeah, I mean, things that I guess I do want to see, and they are doing, is more DLC for Nintendo's JRPGs, and they actually are doing that, because Xenoblade 2 got significant DLC, Pokemon is getting significant DLC, Fire Emblem is getting significant DLC, so I do want to see that continue.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be kind of cool. And even now, just thinking about it at this moment, another like a series that I think should not make it to Switch, even though I think we're going to get one, because I think they announced it during their Pokemon Direct and stuff, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, which I think is a remake of an earlier game, something like that. But like having some of those Pokemon Mystery Dungeons from like 3DS and stuff make the jump, or from like GBA and stuff make the jump. Like that. I've never been a fan of that series, honestly.
Yeah, I've loved this series. I honestly wish that they ported like one of the later games, which have a lot of quality of life improvements and are just bigger games overall. I'm not sure. I think it's because it's the anniversary that they're doing the first game, but I would like to see the other games brought over too.
Yeah,
I just like Mystery Dungeon games, but they aren't everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, agreed. Like one of the things I always said about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, again, as like a role playing game and stuff, is that if it played like Pokemon Rumble, it'd be a perfect dungeon crawler. Like it'd be just like absolutely like awesome. Because I'm a little bit more about like real time action. Like the controls are a little bit fast. Like I feel like things run smooth like that. Maybe it's just me and my background with action games or platformers and stuff. But I always felt like those were just kind of like so restrictive. But I'd be down for that. I'd be totally open to at least trying it again. Whether it's this remake or maybe a new sequel down the line for something like that. But anyway. Any other final thoughts about role-playing games on Switch, JRPGs, Western RPGs? Like any other things that you could think of that maybe the good people should know about?
Well, just I'm always willing to help people with recommendations. I'm willing to talk about people with RPGs, and I think RPGs are actually one of Switch's strongest overall genres. And in 2020, it's just going to get better. As we have a lot of heavy hitters coming, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bravely Default 2. So there's a lot of heavy hitters still coming this year.
I agree. Yeah, and it's weird too because Nintendo, they were again earlier Nintendo days. They're probably their biggest genre for me personally was probably platformers. Like again, it's just weird to see that shift between the different consoles. Like there's so many good quality JRPGs or Western RPGs to play and dive into, and now like while there's still other great games in those other genres, they don't seem to have as much right now at the current moment.
I agree.
Which is cool. But yeah, thank you, Stealth, for chatting it up with me about role-playing games and stuff. You got to do a list about some of the other genres too at some point. I know it's putting a lot more work on you, but I think this is something that people would really get a lot out of.
I could do an overall Switch list, but yeah, that will be a lot of work, and it would definitely cause a lot more fighting for sure.
Like for real, like maybe not like an overall like one all be all like list of like Switch games, like but just divide it amongst like different genres, like again like platformers, first person shooters or third person shooters, like that, puzzle games, maybe something like that. Who knows? Let's see what Twitter.
Yeah.
Let's see what Twitter has to say about it. They're like, yes, give it to us. It'd be crazy. See what they do. But anyway, Stealth, where can everybody find you right now? You're on the socials. You're on Twitter. Where can everybody say hey to you or say what's up?
Everyone can find me at Stealth40K on Twitter. That's really the best place.
Yeah, go send them some owl hugs. Send them some little Nintendo owls. Was it great owls from Zelda? Because we like to send people owls here. It's always a good thing to do so like that and keep it with the theme. But yeah, so if you guys enjoyed this episode, let me know what's up down below in the comment section. Make sure you guys like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Don't forget, you could join up on my Patreon for $1 or higher. You get a ton of exclusive content, a ton of perks, including access to the exclusive Discord chat that we have. Well, the Discord server that I have now, that's also linked down below in the description box, it's open to everybody. Everybody who is a Patreon supporter, you get an exclusive chat just for you guys to talk about whatever you want. It could be games, movies, random stuff, anything that you guys like or whatnot. But again, thank you, Stealth, for chatting with me. Guys, I will see you guys again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.